socials and stuff.
No, you must go back to the website and check. While you're doing that, I want to chat a little bit about EZU, which dropped recently. So this has been, a bit of the talk of the town. This is Voltura's projects. So Cade actually had an incredible, very rare interview with Voltura, about a 2-hour interview. If you haven't watched it, I highly suggest you go and watch it. It was really, really interesting. So here's their collection, EZU, which dropped recently.
Wow.
It's supposed to be a 15,000 collection. And the mint price was 0.2 Ethereum. We know that 4,000 were reserved as airdrops for people who own the Psychedelics and another one of the sub-collection NFTs. You had to own both of those in order to get the airdrop. So 4,000 are going to be airdrops. And then because the volume of sales were going down, they've capped the collection at 5,200. But they've said for every one that you own, we will drop you one. So that's effectively going to take the collection to 10,400 plus 4,000 plus minus for airdrops for the holders who hold the previous psychedelics components. That takes you to about 14,000 something. So that's how they got there. So that's really taking mint price down to 0.1, because if you minted one at 0.2 and held, then you're ending up getting 2 for that price. And this is a very interesting one because it's the first wear to earn thing. So basically, you'll be wearing their clothing it will track where you're wearing it and how often, and you'll earn for wearing branded clothing, which I find very interesting. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, Kate, because you know a lot about this and you know a lot about Voltura and everything. What are you thinking?
So I interviewed him a few weeks ago. We had that full podcast. That was great. So I've actually spoken to him since, and we are setting up the second round. I don't know if it'll be with Volt this time. It'll definitely be with EZU. So this one's going to be specifically on the EZU project because I just listened to about 5 hours of recorded Twitter Spaces yesterday to prepare for the interview and also to prepare for a video that I'm covering. So it's a new style series I'm doing, but part of the series, or part of the video will be just covering what happened with EZU and all the information around it. EZU is separate from Psychedelics Anonymous, guys. So Psychedelics Anonymous is Voltura's brainchild. EZU is kind of like just another project. It's not really, it's tied to Psychedelics Anonymous, but not the same way that people are thinking. So EZU is its own product thing. Like they're just trying to make products and ship them out and make a business structure. Like that's what EZU is. It's separate. And they have a whole team, right? Like Louis Gale is in charge, which is Voltura. He's going to be in charge of strategy, marketing, and stuff like that. But for the most part, he's not running that project the way he's going to be running Psychedelics Anonymous. So I think that they should have done a 0.2 ETH drop. One thing that's interesting that I'm going to talk about in the video is that they had exactly the same run-up and situation that Cool Man's Universe had leading up to their babies. Babies flopped. They had way too big of a collection, way too high mint price. It failed. Everyone got pissed. FUD. Floor was crashing. So one of the main things that they had in common was that Psychedelics Anonymous was going down in floor price the weeks leading up to EZU. The same thing happened with Cool Man's Universe. It was just crashing consistently from like 0.9 to like 0.6 or 0.5 by the time the babies came. It was like, why are we going to buy this depreciating assets secondary collection? So that was like one of the things, just timing. That's kind of hard to combat. And then when they made the decision to airdrop everyone the remainder of the EZU, I get what he's trying to do, and it will probably be a best decision long term. But in the short term, that's gonna hurt. That floor is gonna crash, I think, pretty hard.
It will crash when you get the airdrop because everyone's holding now because you have to hold it in order to get the airdrop. I think he should have just cut the collection, make it a 10,000 collection, and not airdrop it. The other thing about this collection was this was the first Ethereum collection to drop on MagicEden's Launchpad, which is very, very interesting. Yeah, because you could mint it either in Ethereum or Solana. It is an Ethereum project, so that's the project, but you could pay in Solana, which was really, really cool. And I must say, my hats off to MagicEden because, there was, you see, they say here sold out. There was a lot of people, like 1,000 people trying to mint in the very beginning.
Yep.
I was one of them. And gas was nothing, bro. Gas was really, really fine. Everything went without a hitch. I had really hats off to MagicEden. Their website was stable. It dropped on time, like exactly on time. It had a countdown here, and literally on the second it was ready. So just as far as MagicEden in this, I think that this was really showing what these guys are made of, and made me just incredibly bullish on MagicEden as a whole. I'm still scared of Solana NFTs, but here you have an Ethereum project that's on Solana, minted on Solana, also appears on OpenSea, and look, to sell 5,000 in a market that we're in at 0.2 is not terrible. I mean, it's it could have been a lot worse in my opinion. I think they did pretty well.
I'm interested to see how D go. Also, ULIS, I'm under review, it says still. So I have a chance.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm really interested to see what happens, because EZU flopped a little bit. No one was expecting it. Everyone comes out of the woods now, and they're like, see, they shouldn't have done this because this, that, and the other. It's like, well, if they had not flopped, you would have had a completely different thesis as to why it didn't flop. And so it's just one of those things that's just how it happened.
I don't think it's a flop. I am
interested to see what happened. I don't know. I don't think it's a flop. I think they flopped. Yeah. I think they flopped the drop. I think they flopped the drop. Come on.
Because they never minted out. Is that what you're saying?
No, they just, okay. So here's one of the things that people are really pissed about. Because I listened to the full 5 hours of spaces that Volt did. They're mad that they felt like the Psychedelics Anonymous holders aren't getting enough benefit. They're not getting the benefits they thought they were going to get by holding. And then 2, they didn't have a community for EZU. They didn't have their own Discord. They didn't have their own community. It was all Psychedelics Anonymous people. People were like, who is EZU? Like, who's on the team? No one knew. They didn't do enough of identity searching and identity establishing for the EZU project brand to have done anything. It was just like, even me, after doing all the research, I was like, so it's basically just Psychedelics Anonymous's like passion project or something. Like, it was a bit confusing still. Like, I understood the majority of it, but it was still a bit confusing. And I think that's the main reason that I would say the drop wasn't like, not a complete fail, but they fucked the drop a little bit, and that's okay. Like, it's not like it's just what happens. But I mean, he's been hitting dubs every single time before that. So for people to be like, now this is just him stealing all the money from the ecosystem, I'm like, guys, you can't look at it like that. It's not about the whole ecosystem.
No, I don't think it's that. I think he's going to keep building. Yeah. I agree with you. It would have been good if they had their own Discord. They have since launched their own Discord for EZU.
Yep.
It would have been good if they had their own Discord and made it separate. But look, I mean, as far as going for 15,000, knowing that you were going to have to airdrop about 5,000, let's just average it out, to holders of certain components from Psychedelics Anonymous. So he was basically going after a 10,000 collection at 0.2. And you know what? He shot for the moon, and he hit the stars, But the truth is, I think the big mistake now is not cutting that collection to 10,000. I think keeping it 15,000 and airdropping minters is a big mistake, because the second that those tokens are airdropped, that floor is going to go to 0.1, under 0.1.
Way under 0.1, I think. I think it's gonna be close to 0.07, 0.08. I was so if they cut the collection there, I think their worry was that they wanted this to be bigger than the Psychedelics Anonymous collection, so it could get more and more people in. The thing is, you're airdropping it to the people who already have it, so it's not exactly doing that. But in the long term, I think it will, because in the long term, the next 5 years, there will be people who will be able to get into the ecosystem, because there's not 5,000, there's 15,000. So in a long roundabout way, it'll work, I think. But in the short term, it's gonna hurt as far as their ego. But the thing is, they got the funding. Like, it's not about the floor price for EZU. It's about selling. It's about like having money. So they're funding, and in that sense, they're just gonna keep doing their thing. They're not gonna be able to do as much as they could have if they had sold out. But I imagine they're gonna have they're gonna be fine, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So very, very interesting.